Welcome to Leadership Unscripted, where I'm going to spin this wheel and it's going to randomly select from one of 300 topics that I haven't seen before, and I'm going to speak to it for a maximum of 3 minutes. Here we go. Explain the difference between accountability and blame. All right, excellent. Accountability and blame. I think accountability fits in a trifecta of ways of thinking about things. I think about the difference between accountability, responsibility, and ownership. Responsibility is something that's given to us. Accountability is something that's kind of imposed upon us, so it's external. Hold people accountable, and ownership is something that's taken. So I think just distinguishing those three is a really good way to start and to think about the difference between that and blame. I think we talk about accountability way too much in organisations. And I was once working with a team where one of the participants said, "I hold my people accountable," kind of almost big noting himself. And I said, "That sounds like a failure of leadership." And he went, "Oh, what do you mean?" So for me, how do we foster ownership? Because I said, "Well, what happens when you're not there?" And so this notion of ownership is a much stronger construct than accountability. But that doesn't mean we don't also have accountability in organisations. So I'm not saying we dispense with that. I do have a slightly different view that accountability should flow uphill. And what I mean by that is not top down. So I think we get an enormous amount of bureaucratic drag when we have these layers of managers who don't necessarily add a huge amount of value to the enterprise, except controllers, checkers, and decision makers, and holding the next level accountable rather than creating ownership and fostering an environment where people can thrive. Accountability flowing up means is we create ownership, we give people the right tools and training to do their job really well, and then they report up what they've done. So it's a major shift in how we think about that in organizations. If we can create those kinds of conditions and think about accountability in a very different way, then blame becomes much less. It's not about blame. Blame is where we've kind of personalized the issue rather than talked about the topic. Blame also demonstrates, I think, weak leadership and someone who probably hasn't done a lot of work on themselves, to be honest. If we're blaming others without looking in the mirror and taking accountability for what's happened or ownership for what's happened, then that's fairly poor leadership. And whether you're a leader or not, we shouldn't really be blaming others. We should be thinking about things with curiosity, asking good questions, and trying to maintain neutrality. And if you have to, hold people accountable for sure, so it doesn't happen again. But blame is a very different energy where it feels like we're creating people who are less than, and we're going to impact self-esteem and trust and relationships in the team. All right, time's up. That's it. That was 3 minutes. That was Leadership Unscripted. See you next time.